You might have heard the whispers in the City of London, or read the headlines in the Financial Times. The era of Made in China is drawing to a close. Between trade wars, aggressive tariffs, and the buzzword of the decade, decoupling, it feels as though the global economy is finally packing its bags and heading elsewhere. But take a moment to look around your own living room. The smartphone charging on your side table, the sleek laptop you use for work, even the high-tech LED bulbs in your ceiling, almost every single one of them has a lineage that leads straight back to the Chinese mainland. The world tried to walk away, but it stumbled. Why? Because China's stranglehold on global manufacturing isn't built on the crumbling foundation of cheap labor anymore. That is a ghost of the 90s. Today, China's dominance is anchored by an industrial ecosystem so vast and so terrifyingly efficient that it defies conventional economic logic. We are talking about a machine that the rest of the world simply cannot replicate, no matter how many political speeches are made in Westminster or Washington. Let's start with a figure that puts things into perspective. China is responsible for roughly 28% of every single manufactured good on this planet. To give that some weight, that is more than the industrial output of the United States, Germany, and Japan combined. But the real magic isn't in the volume, it is in what experts call industrial density. Imagine you are a bright young entrepreneur in Shoreditch with a brilliant idea for a new piece of consumer tech. You have the design, the patent, and the seed funding. Now, you need to build 10,000 units. If you tried to do this in the UK or the US, you would spend months playing a logistical game of Tetris. You would source your plastic casings from a firm in the Midlands, your circuit boards from a specialist in Texas, and your batteries from South Korea, before shipping everything to Mexico for final assembly. Every link in this fragmented chain is a potential point of failure. If one supplier has a bad week or a shipping lane gets blocked, your entire project collapses. Now, take that same idea to Shenzhen. You walk into a district like Huaqiangbi, and within a single square kilometre, you have every electronic component known to man. You have dozens of prototyping labs, hundreds of specialized workshops, and a literal army of engineers ready to solve your design flaws over a cup of tea. Need a custom circuit board? You'll have it in 4 hours. Want to tweak the casing? It's done by tomorrow morning. Ready for a run of 100,000 units. The line starts moving next Monday. This is Shenzhen speed, and it exists because of complete vertical integration. This is the power of complete vertical integration. China didn't just build isolated factories, it engineered entire factory ecosystems. We see cities transformed into specialized industrial hubs, Shenzhen for high-tech electronics, Dongguan for hardware, Yiwu for global commodities, and Guangzhou for textiles. In these cities, the supplier, the manufacturer, the logistics firm, and the financier all live within minutes of each other. When Apple needs to move 100 million iPhones, only China has the plumbing to handle that much volume. When the pandemic hit and the world gasped for 200 billion face masks, only China could turn the taps on overnight. This isn't just a business advantage, it is industrial supremacy on a scale humanity has never witnessed before. But machines and buildings are useless without the minds to run them. And this is where the gap between East and West becomes a chasm. Every year, China produces over 7 million engineering graduates. That is more than the United States, Europe, and India combined. However, the true threat to global competitors isn't just the sheer volume, it is the ruthless precision of their specialization. China has engineered a dual-track educational system designed with one goal, to sustain the world's most formidable manufacturing heartland. While the West focused on liberal arts and service sector degrees, Beijing invested heavily in a sprawling network of vocational institutions. These schools don't just teach theory, they produce industrial warriors, highly disciplined CNC operators, master welders, and quality control specialists ready to hit the production line on day one. At the higher tier, technical universities function as R&D hubs for the state, churning out robotics engineers and material scientists at an industrial scale. Their graduate programs are laser-focused on the pillars of 21st century dominance, industrial automation and supply chain optimization. The result is a workforce that defies the old, made-in-China stereotype of low-cost, low-skill assembly. This is a massive, highly disciplined, and hyper-specialized army of technicians. They have created a human infrastructure that is arguably harder for the West to replicate than any physical factory. In the global chess game of manufacturing, China isn't just playing with more pieces, they are playing with a more specialized set of tools. In 2017, Elon Musk famously tried to build an alien dreadnought, a Tesla factory in California run entirely by robots. It was a spectacular failure. Production stalled, quality plummeted, and the company nearly went bankrupt. Why? Because Musk realized that for complex, high-speed assembly, human intuition is still irreplaceable. To witness the pinnacle of modern manufacturing, one must look at Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory. It is not merely a plant, it is a marvel of industrial output, producing more vehicles than any other Tesla facility on the planet, with higher quality, lower overheads, and a speed of production that defies Western standards. The secret ingredient isn't just the machinery, it is the Chinese workforce. We are talking about a labor pool with an almost supernatural ability to adapt. While Western plants might take months to integrate a new manufacturing process, workers here master it in days. Bottlenecks that would stall a European factory for weeks are solved by Chinese engineers overnight. This creates a culture of relentless, 24/7 production that the West simply cannot replicate. In China, flexibility isn't just a corporate buzzword, it is a structural reality. When global demand spikes, these factories don't just work harder, they scale at a velocity that seems impossible. Need to double your output? China can mobilize 10,000 qualified workers by the following month. Need a niche, highly specialized skill set? You can draw from a talent pool of millions, nurtured by the state's focused educational system. On a balance sheet, this agility is invisible. You won't find a line item for relentless adaptability or instant scalability. Yet, it is the fundamental reason why, when the world needs to build the future at scale, the first and last call is always to China. It is not just about the cost of the labor, it is about the sheer, unyielding power of a workforce that never stops evolving. Most people hold a vision of Chinese manufacturing that is dangerously obsolete. They conjure images of sweatshop, endless, dimly lit rows of workers performing repetitive manual tasks for meager wages. That image belongs to the turn of the century. Today, it is nothing more than a ghost of the past. Step into a modern Chinese facility in 2026, and you aren't entering a workshop, you are walking into a science fiction set. The air is filled not with the sound of manual labor, but with the rhythmic whirring of millimeter-precise robotic arms. Automated guided vehicles, AGVs, glide across the floor like silent ghosts, shuttling components without a human driver in sight. Overseeing this mechanical ballet are sophisticated AI systems, monitoring every micro-step of production in real time. This isn't just automation, it is intelligent manufacturing. Machine learning algorithms now predict equipment failures before they even occur, eliminating downtime before it can happen. The statistics are even more startling than the visuals. China has become the undisputed global leader in industrial robotics. In 2023 alone, Chinese factories integrated over 290,000 new robots into their production lines. To put that into perspective, that single year of Chinese expansion exceeded the combined efforts of the United States and the entire European continent. China isn't just outworking the West, it is out-evolving us. They have traded the low-tech assembly line for a high-tech automated fortress, proving that the future of the world's factory is no longer human-driven, it is algorithm-led. But here is the masterstroke: China isn't just replacing people with machines, it is augmenting them. They've pioneered a hybrid model where low-skill, repetitive tasks are fully automated, while high-skill quality control and complex problem-solving remain in human hands. This is all stitched together by a smart manufacturing. We are talking about factories where every machine communicates with every other machine via the cloud, where machine learning algorithms predict equipment failure before it happens, and where AI optimizes production schedules to eliminate a single second of waste. While Western governments are still debating the merits of industrial policy, the Made in China 2025 initiative has already finished its heavy lifting. Billions were pumped into tax breaks for automation and subsidies for AI research. China didn't just tweak its factories, it rebuilt them from the ground up for the 21st century. However, even the most advanced factory is a tomb if you can't get the goods out. This is where China's physical infrastructure becomes almost unfairly superior. Let's talk about the ports. 7 of the world's 10 busiest ports are located in China. The port of Shanghai alone handles more cargo than every single port in the United States combined. These aren't just docks, they are hyper-efficient logistics engines. In a major Western port, a container ship might take 3 to 5 days to unload and reload. In China, the same ship is back at sea in under 24 hours. Behind the coast, the connectivity is just as relentless. China has constructed a high-speed rail network spanning over 42,000 kilometers, enough to circle the Earth. This allows engineers and managers to move between industrial hubs in hours, not days. They've built more motorways than the US, ensuring that raw materials flow seamlessly from the interior to the coast. Then there is the power. While countries like South Africa or Pakistan, and even parts of Europe, struggle with energy stability and soaring costs, China has built one of the world's most resilient grids. By diversifying into a massive mix of coal, hydro, nuclear, and the world's largest solar and wind farms, they ensure that the factories never stop. But the most critical infrastructure today is invisible, the digital backbone. China has deployed over 3 million 5G base stations, creating a high-speed, low-latency environment that allows for the industrial Internet of Things. Imagine a factory in a rural province controlled by a headquarters in Shanghai with zero lag. This digital dominance isn't just a luxury, it is the nervous system of modern manufacturing. It makes China's supply chain not just fast, but resilient against any external shock. For decades, the West dismissed China as a copycat economy, great at making things cheaply, but incapable of true innovation. That arrogance has become a strategic liability. Today, China files more patents than any other nation on Earth, outperforming the US and Japan combined. We aren't just talking about volume, we're talking about the frontiers of technology, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and battery chemistry. Take CATL, for instance. You may not know the name, but they produce 1 out of every 3 electric vehicle batteries on the planet. They aren't just assembling cells, they are inventing the very chemistry that makes batteries safer, cheaper, and longer lasting. Or look at BYD, which has overtaken Tesla in global EV sales. They aren't winning on price alone, they are winning on design and proprietary tech. China realized that being the world's factory wasn't enough, they had to own the intellectual property too. Beijing's R&D spending now tops $600 billion annually. Their universities collaborate directly with the factory floor, ensuring that a breakthrough in a lab becomes a product on a shelf in record time. This shift from imitation to innovation is perhaps the most significant structural change in global power this century. But the true strategic masterstroke lies in China's domestic market, 1 per billion people. This vast population acts as a giant, enclosed laboratory. Chinese firms can test, refine, and achieve massive economies of scale within their own borders long before they ever set foot on the global stage. While British or American startups must export to survive, Chinese companies can thrive at home, perfecting their technology until they are ready to dominate internationally. We are witnessing a fundamental restructuring of global power. China is no longer just making the world's products, it is designing the future of robotics, green energy, and artificial intelligence. This leads us to the most critical question of the decade. After everything we've covered, the debt, the demographics, the political risks, you might ask, why doesn't the world simply leave? Why don't the tech giants and manufacturers pack up and move to Vietnam, India, or Mexico? If you have been following the news, you've likely seen the corporate announcements, Apple moving some production to Vietnam, Samsung investing billions in India, or American firms nearshoring to Mexico. On paper, it looks like a mass exodus. But if you peel back the sticker that says it's made in Vietnam, you'll find a much more complex truth. The reality is that moving a final assembly line is relatively straightforward. Replacing an entire ecosystem, however, is nearly impossible. Many of the components in those Vietnamese products are still made in China. The machinery used to build them is Chinese. The logistics software managing the flow of parts is Chinese. You can move the four walls of a factory, but you cannot move 40 years of integrated supply chain history. Vietnam has cheap labor, but it lacks the sheer volume of skilled technicians. India has enormous potential, but its fragmented infrastructure still lags decades behind. Mexico is geographically convenient for the US, but it lacks that industrial density we discussed earlier. Companies that tried to leave quickly discovered that the cost of inefficiency elsewhere far outweighed the savings on wages. China was well aware that the world would eventually try to reduce its dependence. That is why Beijing launched a strategy known as dual circulation. The goal is simple: make the rest of the world more dependent on China while making China less dependent on the world. They are investing trillions into controlling the choke points of the future: semiconductors, rare earth minerals, and advanced aerospace components. Even if the West attempted a hard decoupling, China's industrial engine would keep humming because it has something no other manufacturing power possesses: a domestic market of 1.4 billion people. This allows Chinese firms to test, refine, and scale their innovations at home before they even think about exporting. It is a fortress economy, designed to survive and thrive even in isolation. Of course, this dominance comes with a heavy price tag. China faces immense internal challenges: an aging population that threatens to shrink the workforce, massive debt bubbles in the property sector, and the environmental scars of decades of breakneck growth. But unlike many Western democracies, which are often paralyzed by short-term political cycles, the Chinese system is built for long-term execution. When they faced a pollution crisis, they didn't just talk, they invested $300 billion in renewables and became the world leader in green tech. When they saw a labor shortage on the horizon, they didn't panic, they accelerated automation faster than any nation in history. Whether you admire the model or find it unsettling, the results are undeniable. So, where does this leave us? For over a decade, politicians have promised to bring manufacturing home. They've slapped on tariffs, launched trade wars, and given rousing speeches about self-reliance. And yet, China's grip on the global supply chain has only tightened. What China has built over the last 40 years isn't just a collection of factories. It is a living, breathing industrial organism. It is a workforce of millions that cannot be matched, an infrastructure so advanced it makes the West look antiquated, and an innovation engine that is no longer just catching up, but setting the pace. China didn't just become the world's factory. It became the factory the world literally cannot live without. And that is why, despite the headlines and the political posturing, China's manufacturing dominance remains, for the foreseeable future, completely unbreakable. If this deep dive into the global economy opened your eyes, make sure to support the channel. Leave a comment below. Do you think any nation, India, Mexico, or the US, actually has a chance of challenging this industrial titan? Or are we already living in a Chinese-manufactured future? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next analysis.